Hi, Steve here. I wanted to present to you today a workspace that dealt specifically with uh, COVID-19 and the things that you need to be doing in your retail energy company to respond to all of the various issues that are arising as you go about your day-to-day business. Um, I hope it's a useful tool. I based it on a general overview prepared by McDermott Will Emory. It's a law firm out of New York. Very good firm, and so I want to give credit to do. If you want to see the presentation that they did, please visit their website at www.mwe.com. But let's see how I've taken what they've done and presented it in more of an actionable tool that you can use to actually implement the various tasks that they've suggested. And I want to show this table as various categories first. So let's take a look at this table and see how it can be useful to you. First of all, you'll notice that I've broken this up into a view that's by category. And I created several categories that were suggested by McDermott Emory. And they are general crisis management, employment workforce considerations, which is about protecting your employees, commercial agreements, supply chain disruptions, regulatory matters, corporate and capital markets, insurance, financing, data privacy, corporate and capital markets with respect to M&A opportunities, and restructuring. So the way I created this table is, of course, we have the header here. I have a brief description of what this Airtable Base is to be used for, so you have some guidance there. I have little information tabs here for each of the fields so that you know what this field is for. I've created some views that you might want to use, including by progress, such as complete, in progress, completed, and behind. So let's just take a look at the fields that I created. First is the name, which is basically the name of the category, or the name of the actual task. And then there is status. And in status, you have a choice here of, let's see here, we've got complete, not started, in progress, behind, blocked. Now, these are just my suggestions. Obviously, you can change these or add additional options if you see fit. It's just a way to give you some ways to look at your information and see the progress. As I've often said about Airtable, what's beautiful about it is the status allows you to sort and filter, and then thereby give views to your management who can access from, whether it's their phone or their iPad or their desktop, to see themselves in real time what's going on. Here's the categories that you would select from for each of the tasks. Then I have a field here for departments, and I've created departments based on typical groups that I have found in the business, everything from finance to legal to operations, supply, regulatory, etc. Again, you can customize these however you see fit. I've also created a field here for team leads, of people that would be the person responsible for making sure the task was completed. And then a field here for support of other people that can be added to support the team lead's completion of the task. In this field right here, I have a start date for when the task was started, and then target completion date by when this task should be completed. And I suggest, a Zoom call at some point. You can go through and all the various tasks and decide with each the individual team leads what task can be completed and roughly when. This other field is one where you can pick another task that is in another field that might need to be completed first before you can proceed to that one, so that you can create a Gantt chart that will show if anything is sort of dependent on another task being done. That may depend on your particular business, but it will help you create a Gantt chart, which I will show you in the blocks. Status comments are very important because you can here use long text that you can also format to discuss on a particular task what things are problematic, obstacles you're facing, what your suggestions are. You can also put an @ sign in the name of a person who's a member of this workspace and send them a question in which they can then respond in kind. This way, instead of having email, which is separate from this workspace, you can include it in the workspace, and you'll also have a record of it so that you don't have to go on a hunt to find the emails, but more importantly, you have a consolidated record of all the comments that occurred, what the responses were, and if someone dropped the ball, you may have a better view of who did that. Finally, under attachments, you can drop any kind of a document, a picture, any typical file that you probably put in a Dropbox. And this makes it far superior to an Excel spreadsheet because you can't put attachments in an Excel spreadsheet. In doing that, you can create multiple fields if you want for different kinds of attachments. Here are just generic versions, but perhaps after one task there's something, a memo written, or a copy of an important contract that you can attach here so that you can include that information in real time in the context of what was being examined. So let's examine some of these tasks. If you click on General Crisis Management, we see that one of the first things that you probably should be doing is creating a task force of your leads. Mostly it might be the directors of each of your departments, so that you at least have a leadership team managing the crisis management on a whole and being responsible for each of their individual departments. You also want to develop or update a business continuity plan. All of the contacts that people have, their emails, their websites, the names of the contacts, their phone numbers, all that information should be included in a registry. Now I've created another Airtable Base that allows you to create one of these registries. So please go look that up on my YouTube or my website. And you might want to use that as a template for creating a business continuity plan if you haven't done it already. I also have a suggestion that you develop or update a workforce management plan. This would be more of your day-to-day in-out kind of a table that which you could track, who is working from home, when are they working from home, anything else like that in terms of like who's filling in if someone gets sick because of the virus, or someone has to stay home to take care of their family, who's the alternate, who's going to be the point person, so that you have a in and out sort of table. Finally, you want to develop a consistent communication plan. This would be with your team leads with respect to employees, customers, suppliers, vendors, lenders, regulators. You need to have a consistent communication plan about what you're going to say, and make sure that everyone who's your counterparty is kept up to date. So that kind of covers the general crisis management. Then you also have a list of tasks related to protecting employees, which means working with your HR department to make sure that you have everything related to Perel in the office, rules about keeping 6 feet apart, maybe time shifting in terms of when people come in and out. You want to have an ability for your IT to check to see and make sure that equipment is being checked out and who's using it, and making sure that there's no issue with respect to discrimination and privacy laws with respect to using that outside equipment. So there's a range of tasks here that need to be assigned. I've gone ahead, as you see, and given what I would recommend as being the department that would be responsible for it. I've listed here a leadership team, and for me in the past, that generally means the C-suite, the CEO, CFO, COO, and general counsel. So, and then there'd be a team lead and a support person for those departments. And so I've already included them where I think who I would ask in my departments in the past to be responsible for some of these tasks. Obviously, you can change it and customize it to yourself. You can actually put actual persons' names in if you want to. But this gives you an idea of how I would organize it. So we move from employment to commercial agreements. This is important to make sure that you have all of your relationships with your counterparties in a business continuity plan so that you have ability remotely to access if someone's out sick, person that's a key counterparty. Consider use of a cloud-based workspace to change logistic models and to avoid disruption of service. For example, if you have customer care and you have it in-house, but the customer care people are out sick, you may have to delegate this to an outside source. So you have to make some changes here to track who you're going to use as your alternate customer service provider. And so these are other various cloud-based methods that I would recommend, especially since everybody's working remotely. That's the beauty of Airtable in a COVID-type crisis management situation, is that it creates a tool, a workspace to do all of these tasks and implement them maybe in separate Airtables to make it possible for everybody to know exactly what's going on. I view these also as sometimes what I would call systems of record. And what I would point out is that when you use email, Windows folders, Excel spreadsheets, maybe Word tables, the problem is that they're not connected in any sort of way. And so there's no contextual relationship between that information. And you need that in a work table, workspace that everyone can see on any particular matter, so that when you're looking at all this information, both the information contained in the emails versus the folders versus the Excel spreadsheets are all available remotely and in one workspace, so everybody understands the context of these things and don't have to try to rely on a Citrix methodology of hunting and searching through various Windows folders, Excel spreadsheets, what's the current one. This is all be contained in one workspace that would audit. In other words, all changes made to these worksheets are tracked, and you can look and see on any particular record what changes were made or added. So this is highly more efficient and a better record than any ad hoc use of the typical Word Office suite. I have other matters related to regulatory matters, and these might, as you will see, have to do with things like do any interruption of service require notices to the regulatory provider? Are there any vendors that require notices of force majeure if you're unable to make certain filings? So you want to make sure that that's up to date. Under corporate and capital matters, generally, you need to figure out how you may conduct your corporate business remotely. So you may want a cloud-based Airtable to manage things like resolutions by your board, which is most likely going to be used here quite liberally here as you make decisions about how to manage a range of issues related to your company and its operation during a COVID-19 event. You want to look at your insurance and take on these tasks to make sure if there's any insurance coverage for business interruption or other coverage that you might have, to make sure that you follow and up and make claims. You have also financing issues related to making sure covenants and any bank loans, things like that, revolvers, are satisfied, and that you're staying in compliance with those covenants, making sure that you have sufficient cash to get through to meet payroll. You also might list here things like making applications for small business administration loans if you are eligible under the CARE Act. Under data privacy, again, you want to make sure your IT department is on top of the fact that you're all working remotely using either company-owned or your own laptops. And you want to make things like Zoom be taken care of, given the reports of Zoom bombing in terms of people invading a website. You become much more vulnerable now that you have websites that are or laptops that are now more likely to be hacked. So IT should be on top of this, and most of these have to do with IT. Then you have corporate and legal markets. So I find myself that in this situation, you're in a place to actually make acquisitions. If there's distressed assets out there that you want to bid on, you want to be in a situation where you're on top of that. Now, you also could be in a situation where you're also the distressed asset who wants to sell. And so these are tasks and notes that you should be aware of with respect to what might happen if you try to put your asset in terms of discount rates and further scrutiny on your due diligence. I would expect that if you were thinking of going for a sale, you're going to have to dig deep and provide a good resource of information about what's been going on with your company on a number of areas, like your early termination fees for certain services if you should get out. What's the liability related to that? What are your commission structure like? What does that liability look like? So you want all that information prepackaged, maybe on your own internal Airtable before you start putting them out in a due diligence platform. And finally, there's the restructuring, which in general is, making sure you have outside counsel, probably, if this is where you're looking for, to help you in a situation where you're out over your skis and you need help, whether it be financial or regulatory help. There's lots of good law firms that can do that. Certainly many are advertising their help. So, I encourage you to go to your favorite law firm and look at their web pages and see how they're looking at the crisis and what they're suggesting to do. But these are all suggestions that were given by McDermott, Will, and Emory, and they would be an excellent resource as well. So I hope this is helpful. You can track all your information and use this to launch other Airtables. I also would be neglect to tell you that in the block sections, if you have the pro version, which is not necessary but is helpful, you can create a description. You can add a training video. You can have, again, this Gantt chart here that will show you the dependencies here in case you are trying to get all these tasks done, and be able to show management what's the critical path. So if you have any questions about this table, if you would like me to customize one for you, or you would like further explanation, please don't hesitate to contact me. All my information is on my website, and I believe on my YouTube channel. So thank you very much for listening. I hope this helps you. It gives you some sense of centering during this crisis, and that you're staying safe. Thank you very much.